Okay, this is the last day in the benchmark course, week 5, Sunday the 13th of March 2022. Now we'll have a look at a few features today. The meeting we're going to focus on is Coonamble, which is probably not the greatest meeting to look at because we're sort of short on sectional times, but it is a showcase meeting as they call it, and all the top jockeys have gone there. So one of the features we haven't really looked at much in this course so far is the summary. So if we have a look for the jockeys. Now the summary table takes a while to run, so just stop that for a second. We'll see today we've got some of the top riders. You can sort it for Coonamble. So if we have a look, we've got Hugh Bowman there, we've got James McDonald. And one of the races at least, of the horses I was interested in betting on had Clayton Gallagher riding. Now, what I don't like to see is when the jockey is what I would call a wages rider, in that, well, Clayton Gallagher's got to ride in virtually every race. Same thing with Hugh Bowman, he's got to ride in virtually every race. Whereas James McDonald, he's only got 5 rides. So, really, you can see why James McDonald's more successful, because, well, he's got the short horses as well, but he's also got only 5 rides. So in other words, if you're going to have a jockey, Clayton Gallagher, he's got 9 rides. He's going to barely have time to be able to get off the first horse to get on the second one, what with weighing in and weighing out and so on. So in other words, in terms of planning and strategy and so on for the race, well, clearly he's not going to have anywhere near as much time to think about the race, if in fact many of these jockeys do think about the race. But James McDonald with 5 rides, he's got a bit of a gap, although admittedly 4 of them are together, but basically he's going to have some time between the rides. Well, not so much in those ones, but certainly for that one, he's going to have not so much worn out as a result of having all the rides. Now, some jockeys seem to thrive by having more rides. You know, they'll have a few winners for the day and that will inspire them to ride better. But I would say in the end, the jockey that's going to have 9 rides for the day is hardly going to be putting in a great ride in every race. Alright, so needless to say, he's on, well, that might be some chance, that could be some chance, that looks hardly much chance, that's hardly much chance as well, and probably those last 2. So he probably ends up only having a few rides where he's got a real genuine chance. But again, the pure form method is to go for long priced horses, so we certainly don't want Clayton on this $50 shot if he's not going to try. Anyway, that's enough about jockeys for the moment. So there's another report that you might like to use occasionally. It's of some value. Say, for example, you want to find out the horses that are under $2 or around $2. So there's 3 of them at that meeting, all 3 ridden by the top riders. Now, the top riders are the top riders for a reason, but quite often they're the top rider because they've got the best connections. So when they go to somewhere like Coonamble, do they have the same connections? I guess we'll find out. The race we're going to have a look at is race 9 at Coonamble. So it's a benchmark 66, 67 top rating, 61 bottom, plenty of starts. Was a soft 5, it's now a good 4. So there's a very good chance there won't be an upgrade since the track was a bit off earlier. Alright, we've really had problems with these good 3s lately. So good 4 seems to be okay. So going from the top, deal with me, 1 last start, well, has to be some chance. Fearless Mare, racing handy over 1600, probably as far as she goes, has a wide barrier, probably a place chance. Foodie King is racing okay, run 6 over 1600 last time from a reasonable barrier, gone out to a worse barrier. Place chance, some chance, we'll say he's a place chance. Honey Wine won last start in a much weaker race with more weight. Probably going to find this too hard. 34 days off, but it did win with 36 off last time. Nowhere to Look's running this CDRA Championship Class 5, so those championship races in theory are stronger. Oh, as a 70 class, this is a 61, so it's down 9 benchmark points, and it's gone from 54 to 58, so it's gone up 8. So it says down 2, maybe down 1, depending on how it's rounded off. So it'd have to be some chance. Has a better barrier. Eva's a deal. Ran in one of those races that they ran in before. Is racing okay, came from a little way back. Has a worse barrier. Place chance. Mr. Severino won at Walcher 2 starts back in a much weaker race. Probably not. Winner Moon is another one that run in this CDRA Championships Class 5. Barrier 10 down to Barrier 2, 1400 to 1600. $5.70 showing $15. Clearly one that we would want to be going with. Van Dangle. This is one of the James McDonald's runners. So here we can see the real talent of James McDonald away from the city and riding just ordinary horses. He's racing well, races handy from a wider barrier than today. Slightly worse off at the weights, up in class, probably a place chance. We'll see whether James McDonald can get it from being a place chance to being a winning chance. So this will be a good test, 20 days off. Chaumer is racing okay in weaker company. Slightly better barrier, slightly less weight, slightly longer distance. You'd have to say he's assuming that he's going to run the distance. You'd have to be saying he's some sort of chance, or at least a place chance. Let's put him in as some chance. And back in black, back from 2200. Certainly in a slightly weaker race over slightly longer, he would be a slightly better chance. So we will prefer him. So we've gone round once. So sorting them, we end up having Winner Moon, Deal With Me, Chaumer, Nowhere to Look. Right, as I said before, we don't have a lot of sectional time, so they've limited value in this race. Last start, they're all missing. So I'll have to get that sectional type person working harder. Second last start, we have Fearless Miller on top, who we've said is a place chance, followed by Nowhere to Look. So we've got that as a chance. Chaumer as some chance. Van Dangle, James McDonald horse. Alright, the other thing we can have a look at is the comparisons. Alright, so Deal With Me, the favourite in the race, is another one of these classic horses where, well, he had barrier 1 last time, so we've had a few recently where they've had a worse barrier and they've gone to a better barrier and they've basically come through and won the race. So you would think, looking at this, that Deal With Me, given he won last start, is probably going to be able to beat Foodie King, Fearless Miller. So Fearless Miller's gone from barrier 4 to barrier 10, and she races handy, so she's probably going to burn herself out to get up near the lead. Foodie King, barrier 2 to barrier 9's worse off as well, and Eva's Deal, barrier 3 to barrier 11. So they're all worse than the barriers. This one isn't. The only negative about this one is he's gone from 59.5 to 61.5. So that extra 2 kilos. It does get back on the run, so may well just get too far back. So the difference here about horses getting back and running home is we normally like them to get back and run home in races where the distance is increasing. So this horse is going from 1600 to 1600. So in other words, there's no increase in distance. So the ADE that we've talked about with Rem Plant may well apply here, the same distance but with more weight and getting back. Now on the other hand, he may not get back, but almost certainly he's going to. So certainly Deal With Me has to be a strong chance. So he's showing $15, $1.85. So certainly no value there. Winter Moon. Winter Moon here, running against Nowhere to Look, which is another one of the chances in the race. And well, there's a little bit of a gap between Wintermoon beat Nowhere to Look, so in theory you'd think Wintermoon would be able to beat Nowhere to Look. They've both improved on the barriers though, barrier 11 to barrier 5, then barrier 10 to barrier 2. Now it all just depends on whether they need to get back in the run or not. 2 starts back, at least, yeah, 2 starts back, at least anyway. Wintermoon was beaten by Eva's Deal. 1300 might have been a bit too short for it perhaps. If we go down a bit further, Wintermoon beat Honey Wine, which doesn't really mean much, I guess. So that's that one. So who else have we got? Shomer. Well, 1400 metres at Rose Hill on a soft track. Shomer beat Nowhere to Look by a mile and beat Back in Black convincingly there as well. So he ends up being $42 showing 34. So it's almost certainly going to be an over, you would think. So if we're going to make some adjustments to this race, we probably could leave Wintermoon, Deal with Me, Shomer, Nowhere to Look all the same. If we don't like Honey Wine, so let's knock her down by a kilo or so. Don't like this one. It's probably not going to matter in that case for that price. Mr. Severino, you can knock him down by a couple of kilos. Van Dangle, and the others, well, we liked them okay, so we'll just leave them as is. So looking at the market, Wintermoon at $5.30 does seem a little short. Nowhere to Look, probably $5.60 is probably about right. So we could probably knock Wintermoon down by a kilo. So there's some very simple adjustments to make if we have a look at the prices. Nowhere to Look is now on top, so it's a bit of an over, so that would be worth taking. Wintermoon, also, well, a nice over. So in theory it's going to be a double over, so you would take it for the win and the place. Phyllis Miller is also an over. She looks likely to just run a place. And Deal with Me, the likely winner, is an under. The only other one we like is Shomer, and 34 showing 34, so it's not an over, but again, you don't need to bet. If it's the same price, it's effectively an over. Alright, so you don't have to have it 35 or 36. If it's 34 showing 34, then that's okay. So let's just have a quick look at the track, just to finish off. Now, this is your traditional style racetrack, okay, and you may well end up finding that you do best on particular track styles. Alright, so if we look at this track, it's got this look. If we go and have a look at a track like Echuca, got 2 lots of Picnic in here for some reason. I'll save the changes. If we have a look at Echuca, you have to love those branded names. ECHA for the track. You'll see that it's got this somewhat more unusual look with this rather unusual. You need to get this picture redone. It's not the same as the other ones, but it doesn't matter. It gives you an idea. Got this unusual kind of track. So in other words, it's going to be a track where probably horses for courses are probably better suited. And if we have a look at another one, Canberra. Canberra is more of your traditional race track, and so you may well end up finding that this track, Canberra, does tend to run well as far as I'm concerned. Would have done Canberra today, except the rail was out. Soft 5's okay. Yeah, this is more the style of racetrack that that you'll find you'll do better on. So it's a good idea, if you can, to have a look at the track, see whether it's got a sort of traditional style. There will be more about these tracks in the advanced course when and if that ever gets finished. The different styles of racetracks, and then you can sort of compile your results to find out which tracks you've gone well at. You may well find that you go really great at Canberra, whereas you may go really badly at Echuca, and or vice versa, in which case then you can then make some assumptions about where your strengths are. Alright, so you'll end up finding that some of these tracks you do better at than others, and quite often it's just simply the layout of the track that makes all the difference. Now you can't tell everything about the track from this one. It doesn't say whether it's up or down or cambered or anything else, but just from the layout you can get some idea. Anyway, that's the end of this video. We'll see how we go today at Coonamble.